Captain Jiwon Park stood in the center of the massive crystal chamber, her hands bound by energy restraints that glowed a dull blue. Above her, 12 beings from 12 different worlds sat in judgment. Some had faces she could recognize. Others were so alien she could barely understand their form. The chamber itself was beautiful in a terrifying way, carved from a single piece of crystal that orbited a dead star. Light bent and twisted through its walls, creating shadows that shouldn't exist. She had been standing here for 3 days now. 3 days of accusations. 3 days of watching evidence pile up against her. 3 days of seeing the faces of the council grow harder and colder. Councillor Vreeth spoke again. He was Valthine, and his species looked almost human, except for the golden skin and eyes that glowed with inner light. His voice carried weight, not just because of his position, but because his people were ancient. They had walked among the stars when humans were still learning to make fire. The evidence is clear, Vreeth said, his voice echoing through the chamber. The human captain destroyed a temple that stood for 10,000 years. She killed 3 priests who served the sacred grounds. She violated the Treaty of Sacred Grounds, a treaty that has kept peace in this sector for centuries. Jiwon wanted to scream. She wanted to tell them again what really happened. But she had already told her story 5 times. Nobody believed her. How could they? The evidence was right there for everyone to see. The holographic display showed her ship firing on the temple. It showed the ancient structure collapsing. It showed 3 bodies pulled from the rubble. Valthine witnesses had testified that she ignored their warnings, that she attacked without reason, that she showed no respect for their culture. Ambassador Hyun-sik Choi sat in the human section of the gallery, his face carefully neutral. He was an older man, his hair gray, his eyes tired from decades of diplomatic work. Jiwon could see the tension in his shoulders. He was fighting for her, but they both knew he was losing. Magistrate Olin presided over the trial. It was a being of pure energy, contained within a force field that roughly approximated a humanoid shape. Its voice sounded like wind chimes when it spoke. Captain Park, you have heard the evidence. You have been given multiple opportunities to defend yourself. Do you have anything new to say? 1. 9. Jiwon took a deep breath. Her throat was dry, but she forced herself to speak clearly. I have told the truth. My sensors detected a massive earthquake coming. The readings showed it would destroy everything in a 50-mile radius. The temple was right in the path. I sent 47 messages to the priests, warning them. They received every message. I can prove it. You cannot prove they understood your warnings, Vreeth interrupted. Human technology and Valthine's sacred systems are incompatible. Your messages may have arrived, but they appeared as gibberish to our priests. That's not true, Jiwon said, her voice rising despite herself. The translation protocols are standard across all council species. They would have received clear warnings in their own language. And yet, Vreeth continued smoothly, they did not evacuate. Why? Because your warnings made no sense. And then you attacked. I didn't attack. I tried to save them. Jiwon's restraints flared brighter as she pulled against them. When they didn't respond, I flew down myself. I took a shuttle to the temple entrance. Your automated defenses fired on me. I still tried to talk to them, to convince them to leave. They refused. They said their faith would protect them. There is no evidence of this shuttle flight, another council member said. This one was Tellan, a species that looked like walking crystals. Your flight logs show no such trip. The logs were corrupted in the rescue operation afterward, Jiwon explained for the 6th time. When the quake hit, it triggered electromagnetic pulses that wiped half our computer systems. How convenient, Vreeth said softly. The magistrate's energy form flickered. Captain Park, the council finds your story inconsistent with the evidence. You claim to have acted to save lives, yet 3 people died by your direct action. You claim you tried to communicate, yet no record exists. You claim natural disaster, yet our own surveys of Terrace IV show no recent seismic activity in that region. That's because the quake triggered volcanic activity that reset the geological markers, Jiwon said desperately. Please, just send a team to verify my sensor readings. They're all in my ship's core memory. Your ship's memory which you control, Vreth said. Which could have been altered. Jiwon felt her hope cracking. They had already decided. Nothing she said would matter. She could see it in their faces, in the way they looked at her. To them, she was just another reckless human. Humanity had only joined the galactic community 200 years ago. They were newcomers, barely trusted, always watched. Ambassador Hyunsik stood up suddenly. The defense requests a recess. There are avenues we have not yet explored. Magistrate Olun tilted its energy form, considering. The evidence is complete, Ambassador. What more is there to explore? Ancient law, Hyunsik said. I invoke the right of trial by ancient accord. The chamber erupted. Several council members rose, speaking in multiple languages at once. Vreth's golden face darkened with anger. That law has not been used in 3,000 years. It requires artifacts that don't exist. The law still stands, Hyunsik said firmly. It is written in the council charter. If an artifact of the precursors can be brought forth, it may testify to truth. Magistrate Olun raised a hand, and the chamber fell silent. Ambassador Choi is correct. The law exists. However, no precursor artifact has been found in living memory. They are legends, nothing more. Then give us time to search, Hyunsik said. 30 days. If we cannot produce such an artifact, Captain Park will accept her sentence without further appeal. Jiwon stared at her ambassador. What was he doing? Precursor artifacts were myths, stories told to children. The precursors were the civilization that came before all the current species, supposedly so advanced they seemed like gods. But they had vanished millions of years ago, leaving almost nothing behind. Vreth laughed, a sound like crystal bells. This is desperation, Magistrate. Let them waste their time if they wish. 30 days will change nothing. The magistrate considered for a long moment. Finally, it spoke. The council will grant this request. 30 standard days. If the human delegation can produce, the detention cell was small but not uncomfortable. It floated in its own pocket of space. A bubble of artificial gravity surrounded by the void. Jiwon could see stars through the transparent walls, though she knew they weren't really transparent. The walls were showing her what they wanted her to see. Real windows would be a security risk. She sat on the edge of the bed and put her head in her hands. 3 days had passed since the council's judgment. 3 days of waiting in this cell, knowing that her fate was sealed. Mental reconditioning. They would take her memories, her personality, everything that made her who she was. They would rebuild her into someone who fit their idea of what a human should be. Someone obedient. Someone who wouldn't make hard choices. The door shimmered and opened. Jiwon looked up, expecting guards. Instead, she saw someone she didn't recognize. The visitor was tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished wood and eyes that had no pupils. Ashir, she realized. One of the species that rarely spoke in council. Captain Park, the visitor said, their voice surprisingly gentle. My name is Tarim. I am a council observer for the Ashir people. I wanted to speak with you before your ambassador's time runs out. Why? Jiwon asked. She was too tired for games. Everyone else has already decided I'm guilty. Tarim sat down across from her, moving with an odd grace that reminded Jiwon of flowing water. Not everyone. I have studied your species extensively. I have read your history, your wars, your peace. I know what humans do when faced with impossible choices. And what's that? You choose the option that saves the most lives. even when it costs you everything. Tarim leaned forward. I believe you, Captain Park. I believe you saw that earthquake coming. I believe you tried to save those priests. And I believe you made the hardest choice anyone can make. Ji-won felt something break inside her chest. Someone believed her. After all this time, someone actually believed her. She tried to speak but found her throat too tight. The Valthine have great power in the council, Tarim continued. They are ancient, respected, feared. But the Ashir have long memories too. We remember things others have forgotten, and we remember that we, too, were once judged harshly by the Valthine. What do you mean? 400 years ago, they accused us of stealing their genetic research. We were forced to hand over all our biotechnology. They commercialized it, made fortunes, while we were left dependent on their generosity. Tarim's wooden features couldn't show expression, but Ji-won heard the bitterness in their voice. We accepted our guilt because we trusted the council's wisdom. Now I wonder if we were wrong. Before Ji-won could respond, Tarim stood. Your ambassador is searching for something that may not exist. But if he finds it, if he brings back proof of the precursors, everything could change. Have faith, Captain. After Tarim left, Ji-won sat in silence for a long time. Then she stood and walked to the wall, showing the stars. Come back, Hyunsik, she whispered. Please come back. Meanwhile, billions of miles away, Hyunsik stood in a research archive on Earth. Beside him was Minji Kang, one of humanity's best xenoarchaeologists. She was young, maybe 30, with sharp eyes and hands that moved constantly as she thought. Show me again, Minji said, studying the mysterious message on a holographic display. The Vault of Truths knows all. Seek the Keeper's Testament, Hyunsik read. I've searched every database we have access to. There are mentions of a vault, but they're fragmentary. Most scholars think it's a myth. Myths usually have some basis in truth, Minji said. She pulled up older records, scrolling through them with practiced speed. The precursors left almost nothing behind when they disappeared, but there are stories. Legends shared across multiple species that predate galactic contact. That suggests a common source. Legends shared across. Of one. Legends shared across. A common source that vanished millions of years ago. Maybe not vanished, maybe just hidden. Minji stopped scrolling. Look at this. It's from the original survey, when humans first left Earth's solar system. A derelict ship was found drifting in deep space. Most of it was destroyed, but the computer core was intact. Hyunsik leaned closer. I remember this. The Wanderer. We recovered star charts from it, but most were for regions we'd already mapped. Most, but not all. Minji pulled up a specific chart. This one shows a region in the Shadow Rift Nebula. It's marked with a symbol we couldn't translate. But look at the notes the original survey team made. The notes were brief. Possible structure detected. Readings inconsistent. Recommend. Avoiding area. Due to spatial anomalies. The Shadow Rift. Hyunsik said slowly. Ships have disappeared there for centuries. It's considered cursed. Or protected, Minji suggested. What if the spatial anomalies are defenses? What if something is hidden there, and the precursors didn't want it found? By accident, Hyunsik felt a spark of hope. Can we get there in 30 days? If we leave now and push our engines to maximum, maybe. But Ambassador, even if we reach the nebula, we have no guarantee we'll find anything. This could be a complete waste of time. We don't have any other options. Hyunsik straightened up. Gather a team. I want our best pilot, a quantum physicist who understands spatial anomalies, and anyone else who might be useful. We leave in 6 hours. Minji nodded and started making calls. Hyunsik walked to the window and looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, Ji-won was waiting. Somewhere out there, maybe, just maybe, was proof that could save her. 6 hours later, a small expedition ship called the Seeker lifted off from Earth. On board were 5 people. Hyunsik, Minji, a pilot named Daeho Kim, who had served with Jiwon in the military, Dr. Youngseo Han, who specialized in quantum physics, and Taerim, who had quietly requested to join them as an observer. Course set for the Shadow Rift Nebula, Daeho reported. He was a stocky man with steady hands and a calm voice. ETA is 26 days, if nothing goes wrong. That gives us 4 days to search once we arrive, Youngseo said nervously. She was the youngest of the group, fresh out of university. And this was her first real mission. Then we make those 4 days count, Hyunsik said. The journey was long and tense. They passed through Council space, and Hyunsik couldn't help but notice the warships that tracked their progress. The Valthine were watching. They wanted to make sure humanity didn't try anything desperate. On the 22nd day, they entered the outer edge of the Shadow Rift Nebula. Immediately, their instruments went haywire. Time dilation detected, Youngseo reported, her voice rising with excitement and fear. We're experiencing temporal distortions. Minutes are passing at different rates in different parts of the ship. Can you compensate? Hyunsik asked. I can try, but this is beyond anything I've studied. The physics here are wrong. The structure hung in space like a frozen dream. As the seeker approached, everyone on board felt something change. It wasn't physical. Exactly. It was more like the universe itself was paying attention to them. I'm getting strange readings, Youngseo said, her hands dancing over the controls. The structure exists slightly out of phase with normal space. It's like it's here and not here at the same time. Can we dock with it? Hyunsik asked. I don't even know if it's solid, Youngseo admitted. Daeho brought the ship closer, moving with careful precision. As they neared the structure, a section of it seemed to ripple like water. An opening appeared, just large enough for their ship. Well, Daeho said quietly, that's either an invitation or a trap. Only one way to find out, Hyunsik said. They flew through the opening. Inside was a vast chamber filled with soft light that came from everywhere and nowhere. Daeho set the ship down on what appeared to be a solid floor, though their sensors couldn't confirm what it was made of. As they prepared to disembark, Taerim spoke for the first time in days. Be ready for tests. The precursors did not leave their secrets unguarded. They will judge if we are worthy. How do you know that? Minji asked. Because that is what my people would do, and the precursors were wiser than we could ever be. They put on their suits and stepped out of the ship. The air was breathable. Somehow, even though they were in the middle of a nebula, the temperature was comfortable. Everything about this place defied logic. A corridor opened in front of them, its walls smooth and featureless. They walked forward, and as they did, the corridor changed. Suddenly, each member of the team found themselves standing alone in darkness. Hyunsik's heart raced. Minji? Daeho? Anyone? A voice spoke, seeming to come from inside his own head. Images flashed through Hyunsik's mind. Memories he had buried long ago. He saw himself as a younger man, writing a report. He saw himself changing numbers, making a dangerous situation seem safer than it was. He saw the mission that went out based on his report. No, he whispered. I didn't mean to. I was scared. I was new. I thought I was right. Truth, the voice repeated. Speak it. Hyunsik fell to his knees. After all these years, after all the good he had done, this one lie still haunted him. I falsified a safety report 30 years ago. I was afraid of looking incompetent. 5 people died because of my lie. I've spent every day since trying to make up for it. The darkness lifted. He found himself back in the corridor with the others. Minji was crying silently. Daeho looked pale. Youngseo was shaking. Taerim stood calmly. But their wooden features seemed darker somehow. They didn't discuss what they had seen. Some truths were too personal to share. The corridor led to another chamber. In the center was a pedestal, and floating above it was a perfect sphere. Half of it was brilliant white light. The other half was absolute darkness. The two halves swirled together but never mixed. "The Keeper's Testament," Minji breathed. As they approached, the sphere pulsed. Words formed in the air around it, written in a language that shouldn't have made sense, but somehow did. They all understood it, as if the meaning was being placed directly into their minds. "You seek truth. You seek justice. But justice requires sacrifice. What will you give?" The team looked at each other. Taerim stepped forward first. From a pouch at their side, they pulled out a small crystal. "This contains the genetic heritage of my family line, going back 10,000 years. It is the most precious thing my people possess. I offer it freely." The crystal floated up and was absorbed by the sphere. Daeho removed a data chip from his suit. "My flight logs, every mission I've ever flown, every commendation, every record of my military service. It's the proof of who I am. Take it if you need it." The chip joined the crystal. One by one, they each offered something precious. Youngseo gave her doctoral thesis, years of work. Minji gave her research notes, decades of study. Hyunsik gave the only picture he had of his daughter, who had died young. The sphere absorbed everything. Then it spoke, and this time, its voice was clear and strong. "You have passed the trials. You have shown truth, sacrifice, and purpose. I am the bearer of justice, created by those who came before to ensure truth survives when power seeks to destroy it. I have been waiting for someone worthy to seek my aid. Can you help us?" Hyunsik asked. "Can you show what really happened on Terrace the Fourth?" "I can show all that has happened, across all of space and time. I witness through the quantum connections that bind all things. But know this, seekers, truth cuts in all directions. What I reveal may hurt those you wish to protect. What I show may change your galaxy forever. Are you certain you wish to proceed?" "Yes," Hyunsik said, without hesitation. "An innocent woman faces destruction because people won't believe the truth. Whatever the cost, we need you." The bearer of justice pulsed once, then contracted into a smaller sphere about the size of a fist. It floated down and settled into Hyunsik's hands. It was warm and impossibly light. "I will return with you," it said. "I will show the council what truly happened. But be warned, the Valthene will not accept this easily. They have much to lose." "What do you mean?" Minji asked. "I have been watching your galaxy for a very long time. I have seen patterns. The Valthene have been manipulating the council for centuries, using your laws against you. The case of the human captain is not unique. It is merely the latest in a long chain of injustices." The team exchanged shocked looks. "How many cases?" Taerim asked quietly. 23 species have been victimized over 800 years. The Valthene have built their power on lies and false accusations. They choose their targets carefully. Always those who are rising in influence. Always those who threaten their position. "And you've just been watching?" Daeho demanded angrily. "You could have stopped this?" "I was not activated," the bearer said simply. "I require someone to seek me, to prove themselves worthy. Without that activation, I am merely a witness, unable to act. But now I am awake. Now I can speak. Now truth will be heard." They returned to their ship in silence, the weight of what they had learned pressing down on them. This was bigger than Jiwon's trial. This was about the entire structure of galactic power. "If we do this," Youngseo said as they prepared for departure, "we're not just saving Captain Park. We're going to tear the council apart." "Good," Daeho said grimly. "If the council is built on lies, maybe it's time for it to break." Hyunsik held the bearer carefully. "We have 4 days to get back. Let's not waste them." 4. The journey out of the nebula was easier than the journey in. as if the structure itself was helping them leave. Once they cleared the spatial anomalies, Daeho pushed the engines to maximum. "Message incoming," Minji announced. "It's from the council. Magistrate Olun wants to know our status." "Tell them we're returning," Hyunsik said. "Tell them we have what we came for." The message went out. Hours later, they received a response. The council was convening an emergency session. Every species was sending representatives. Word had spread that humanity might actually have found a precursor artifact, and everyone wanted to see if it was real. "We're going to have quite an audience," Taerim observed. The crystal chamber was more crowded than Jiwon had ever seen it. She stood in the center again. But this time, things felt different. The energy restraints were still on her wrists, but there was tension in the air that hadn't been there before. Hope, maybe, or fear. Every species had sent not just their council representatives but observers, historians, and leaders. The gallery was packed. She could see humans she recognized, Earth government officials who had traveled across the galaxy. She could see Valthine in their golden robes, clustered together and whispering. Hyunsik walked into the chamber carrying something that glowed softly. Behind him came Minji, Daeho, Youngseo, and Taerim. They all looked exhausted but determined. Magistrate Olun's energy form brightened. "Ambassador Choi, you have returned with 1 day to spare. Do you truly claim to have found a precursor artifact?" I do, Magistrate." Hyunsik held up the bearer of justice. The sphere pulsed, and every being in the chamber felt something. A presence, an awareness, something ancient and vast paying attention to them. Councillor Vreth rose from his seat, his golden face twisted with anger. "This is a trick. The humans have fabricated this object. There are no true precursor artifacts. This is desperation, nothing more. Let it speak," Magistrate Olun said. "If it is false, we will know." Hyunsik placed the bearer on a platform in the center of the chamber. The sphere expanded, growing larger until it was the size of a person. The darkness and light within it swirled faster. "I am the bearer of justice," it said, its voice filling every corner of the massive chamber. "I was created by the precursors to witness truth and speak it when lies threaten to destroy justice. I have existed for 10 million years, dormant, waiting for those worthy to seek me." "Prove it," Vreth demanded. "Prove you are what you claim. I will show you what I have witnessed. I will show you the truth of Terrace IV. You will not simply see it. You will experience it, as those involved experienced it. You will feel what they felt. You will know truth beyond any doubt." Before anyone could object, the bearer activated. The chamber disappeared. Suddenly, everyone present found themselves standing on the bridge of Jiwon's ship. Watching through her eyes, they felt her concern as the sensor readings came in. Massive seismic activity detected, a magnitude that would devastate everything in 50 miles. They felt her hands moving over the controls, sending warning after warning to the temple. 47 messages, each one clear and properly translated. They felt her frustration when no response came. They felt her fear as the countdown clock showed less than an hour before the quake would hit. 10,000 colonists were scattered across the region. If the quake triggered the volcanic system, evacuation would become impossible. Then they were in the shuttle with her, flying toward the temple. They felt her determination. They felt the impact as automated defenses fired on her shuttle. They felt her desperately calling out to the priests, begging them to evacuate. The memories were so clear that many in the chamber gasped. They could hear the high priest's response. "We will not abandon our sacred duty. Our faith will protect us. Leave, human. You are not welcome here." They felt Jiwon's anguish. She had minutes now. The colony evacuation was nearly complete, but the temple stood directly in the quake's path. The volcanic system beneath it would rupture. Ash and fire would make the air unbreathable for miles around. The ships trying to evacuate the last colonists would be grounded. They felt her make the calculation. 3 priests who refused to leave. 10,000 colonists who needed just a little more time. The temple itself, which would be destroyed by the quake anyway. They felt her hands shake as she gave the order. Target the temple's support structures. Cause a controlled collapse into the underground cavern system. It might protect some of the artifacts. Temple. It would definitely kill the priests. But it would save the colonists. They felt the weight of that choice. They felt her saying a prayer she hadn't spoken since childhood. They felt her tears as her ship fired. The temple collapsed exactly as she had calculated. The priests died instantly. Ji-won sat in her command chair and wept even as she continued coordinating the evacuation. She saved 9,847 colonists. She preserved 60% of the temple's artifacts by dropping them into the protected cavern. She killed 3 people who refused to save themselves. The vision ended. Everyone in the chamber found themselves back in their own bodies, gasping. Some were crying. Many looked shaken. They had all felt what Ji-won felt. They couldn't deny it. They couldn't claim it was fabricated. The experience had been too real, too raw. Ji-won herself was on her knees, sobbing. She had relived the worst moment of her life in front of hundreds of beings. Every emotion, every thought, every terrible second of that choice. Counselor Vreth stood, his voice shaking with rage. This proves nothing. She still killed 3 priests. She still violated sacred ground. She saved 10,000 lives, someone shouted from the gallery. It was one of the colonists from Terrace IV, who had traveled here to see justice done. The treaty is clear, Vreth insisted. Sacred grounds cannot be violated under any circumstances. Even to save lives? Magistrate Olin asked quietly. Even then. Laws exist for a reason. If we allow exceptions, the laws become meaningless. The bearer of justice pulsed. You speak of law, Counselor Vreth, but you have broken laws far more serious than any the human captain stands accused of. The chamber went silent. Vreth's golden face paled. What are you talking about? I have been watching your species for 800 years. I have seen what you do. Shall I show them? No, Vreth shouted. This is not part of the trial. The human's guilt or innocence is the only matter at hand. Justice is always the matter at hand. The bearer said. And justice demands that all lies be exposed. Before Vreth could protest further, the bearer activated again. This time, the visions came faster, showing scene after scene. The chamber watched in growing horror as centuries of Valthene manipulation unfolded. They saw the Ashir accused of theft, forced to hand over their biotechnology. They saw the Krell stripped of mining rights based on false accusations. They saw the Tellan humiliated and forced to pay tribute. 23 species, victimized over and over. They saw Valthene officials meeting in secret, planning their strategies. They saw how carefully the Valthene chose their targets. Always species that were growing in power, always accusations that played on cultural differences. Always using their status as an ancient, respected species to make others doubt the accused. And then they saw the planning for Terrace IV. They saw Valthene intelligence officers noting human expansion. They saw them identify Ji-won as a target because she was well known and respected. They saw them monitor Terrace IV, waiting for an opportunity. They saw the messages about the earthquake. They saw Valthene officials order their priests to ignore the warnings. They saw the cold calculation. 3 martyrs would be enough to turn the Council against humanity. It would slow human expansion, make other species wary of them. The priests hadn't been told they would die. They had been told their faith would protect them, that the human warnings were false. They had been sacrificed by their own people for political gain. When the vision ended, the chamber erupted. Species that had been victimized were shouting. Others were demanding explanations. The Valthene delegation tried to leave, but found the exits sealed by council security. Tarim stood, their wooden voice carrying clearly through the chaos. 400 years ago, my people accepted our guilt because we trusted the council's wisdom. We were wrong. We were victims. How many others were told they were guilty when they were innocent? Magistrate Olun raised both hands, and a wave of energy washed through the chamber, forcing silence. Councillor Vreth, you and your delegation are placed under arrest pending investigation. The charges are conspiracy, fraud, manipulation of council proceedings, and accessory to murder. The crystal chamber had never been so divided. 3 days had passed since the bearer of justice revealed the truth, and the council was still trying to process what it meant. Representatives from 23 species were demanding justice. The Valthene delegation sat under guard, their golden faces no longer proud but frightened. The entire structure of galactic politics was shaking. Jiwan sat in the human delegation section, watching it all unfold. She was free, but she didn't feel free. She could still feel those 3 deaths weighing on her. The bearer had shown everyone that she was right, that she had saved thousands, but 3 people were still dead by her hand. That wouldn't change. Hyunsik sat beside her. You should be celebrating, he said quietly. 3 people are still dead. She replied. Their names were Velen, Morath, and Saren. They had families. They had lives. And I ended them. They refused to evacuate, because their leaders lied to them. They died believing they were doing the right thing. Jiwan looked at her hands. The bearer showed everyone the truth. But it doesn't make those deaths hurt less. Thanks. Thanks. I wear. Before Hyunsik could respond, Magistrate Olun called the chamber to order. The energy being's form was brighter than usual, pulsing with what might have been agitation. The council faces a crisis, Olun announced. For centuries, we have operated under the assumption that our proceedings were just. We now know that assumption was false. 23 species were victimized. Treaties were signed under false pretenses. Wealth was transferred based on lies. The question before us is simple. How do we fix this? Councillor Vreth stood, still in restraints. You speak as if my entire species is guilty. We are not. A few officials made poor decisions. But the Valthene people as a whole are innocent. Poor decisions? Tarim's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. You call 800 years of systematic manipulation poor decisions? You call sacrificing your own priests for political gain a poor decision? I knew nothing of that plan. Vreth shouted. I was told the priests died in an unprovoked human attack. I believed that truth. Many Valthene believed it. We are victims too. Thanks for watching. And see you night contents. And Reth succeeded, and reformed something that, the bearer of justice, which had been silent since its revelations, spoke. This is true. The conspiracy was not universal. Many Valthene are innocent, but the question remains. What happens to the guilty? And what happens to those who were harmed? A new voice spoke up. It came from a Valthene Jiwan hadn't seen before, younger than the others, with golden skin that seemed less bright. For years, I found fragments of evidence suggesting corruption in our council delegation. I was silenced, told I was dishonoring our ancestors, but I kept searching. The bearer has shown me I was right. Valen stepped forward, addressing the chamber directly. The Valthene people deserve to know what was done in our name. We deserve the shame and the opportunity to make it right. I propose that my species take full responsibility. We will return all wealth gained through false accusations. We will open our archives for investigation, and we will teach our children what we did, so it never happens again. Your career will be destroyed, Vreth said bitterly. Your family name will be tainted. Vreth. Good, Valen said simply. If my shame helps restore justice, I will bear it gladly. The chamber erupted in discussion. Species were negotiating, arguing, planning. Hyunsik leaned over to Jiwon. This is going to take months to sort out. Maybe years. What about the bearer? Jiwon asked, looking at the artifact where it floated in the center of the chamber. As if it heard her, the bearer spoke. I have served my purpose. I have shown truth. But my work is not done. I offer myself to this council as a permanent witness. I will observe your proceedings. I will speak when lies are presented. I will ensure truth survives. You would stay? Magistrate Olun asked, surprise evident in its chiming voice. If you will accept me. But know this. I will hold all species accountable. Humans, Valthine, Ashir, all of you. I serve truth, not any government or people. If you lie, I will expose you. If you manipulate, I will reveal it. Can you accept this? The chamber fell silent. Several council members looked uncomfortable. Truth was a sharp tool, and no species was entirely innocent. Finally, Magistrate Olun spoke. I vote to accept. Let truth be our guide, even when it is painful. One by one, the other council members voted. Some hesitated. Some looked afraid. But in the end, 9 voted yes, 2 voted no, and 1 abstained. The bearer of justice was now a permanent part of the Galactic Council. There is one more matter, Olun said. Humanity has proven itself in this crisis. You sought truth when others accepted lies. You risked everything for justice. The Council offers humanity a permanent seat among us. You will be the 13th member species. The human delegation erupted in celebration, but Hyunsik remained calm. We accept, with gratitude. But we do so knowing that this seat comes with responsibility. We will not abuse it. See that you don't, the bearer said. I will be watching you as closely as any other. Over the following weeks, the galaxy began to change. The Valthine, who were guilty of conspiracy, were tried and sentenced. Some faced imprisonment. Others faced exile. Their wealth was seized and distributed to the victimized species, but not all Valthine were punished. Valen and others like him formed a reform movement. They opened archives, exposed corruption, and worked to rebuild their species' reputation. It would take generations, but there was hope. The victimized species received reparations. The Ashir got their biotechnology back and more. The Krell regained mining rights. The Tellan were released from tribute. 23 species began to heal from wounds they hadn't fully understood they carried. Jiwon was offered command of a new council peacekeeping force. It was a great honor, but she turned it down. I need time, she told Hyunsik. I need to figure out who I am after all this. She visited a memorial that the Valthine reform movement had created. It honored Valen, Morath, and Serene, the 3 priests who died on Terrace IV. Their names were carved in stone, along with the truth of what happened to them. Jiwon stood before the memorial for a long time. Finally, she spoke quietly. I'm sorry. I'm sorry your leaders lied to you. I'm sorry you died believing you were doing right. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. She paused. But I would make the same choice again. 10,000 lives for 3. It's a terrible math, but it's the only math that makes sense. She placed flowers at the memorial, a human custom. Then she walked away. Before she left council space, she had one more meeting. The bearer of justice requested to speak with her privately. She found it in a quiet chamber, floating peacefully. You carry guilt, the bearer observed. Yes, Jiwon said. I always will. That is good. The moment you stop feeling the weight of your choices is the moment you become dangerous. Your guilt is proof of your humanity, your compassion. Never lose it. But how do I live with it? By understanding that some choices have no right answer, only less wrong ones. You saved thousands. You ended 3 lives. Both truths exist together. Accept them both. Jiwan nodded slowly. Thank you. Will you return? The bearer asked. The council will need people like you. People who understand the cost of hard choices. Maybe, Jiwan said. When I'm ready. When I've figured out how to carry this weight. Maybe, she returned to Earth. She stood on a beach and looked at the ocean. Then up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the bearer of justice watched over the council. Somewhere out there, species were learning to trust each other again. Somewhere out there, truth was being valued over comfortable lies. Her communicator chimed. A message from Hyunsik. They're calling you the human who changed everything. The human who stood accused and helped build something better. Jiwan smiled sadly and replied, I just told the truth. The bearer did the rest. She put the communicator away and sat on the sand. 3 deaths still weighed on her. They always would. But maybe that weight was the price of being someone who made hard choices. Maybe carrying that guilt was what kept her human. The sun set, and the stars came out. Jiwan watched them for a long time, thinking about impossible choices and the cost of truth. Then she stood and walked home. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight she could rest, knowing that justice had finally been served. You cannot do this, Vreth shouted. The Valthene have been part of this council since its founding. We are beyond reproach. No one is beyond truth, the bearer of justice said. That is why I was created. That is why I exist. Magistrate Olun turned to Jiwan, who was still kneeling, still crying. Captain Park, this council has done you a terrible injustice. You are guilty of nothing except bearing an impossible burden. You made a choice that saved thousands at the cost of 3. It was the right choice, even though it will haunt you forever. You are free. The energy restraints disappeared from Jiwan's wrists. Hyunsik rushed to her side, helping her stand. She couldn't speak. She could barely breathe. Free. After everything, she was free. Let them watch, Hyunsik said, looking at the bearer of justice in his hands. Let them all watch, as truth finally has its day. On the ship's view screen, they could see their destination growing closer. The crystal chamber, where the council met, where Jiwan waited, where everything would change. The bearer pulsed in Hyunsik's hands, as if it could sense what was coming. The Valthene will try to discredit me, it warned. They will say, I am a human fabrication. Be prepared for their resistance. Can you prove you're real? Youngseo asked. I can do better than that. The bearer said. I can show them exactly what the Valthene have been hiding. And once the truth begins to flow, it cannot be stopped. Daeho piloted them deeper. The nebula was beautiful and terrifying. Colors that shouldn't exist swirled around them. Stars appeared and disappeared. At one point, they saw what looked like a ship made of light. But when they tried to scan it, their sensors reported nothing was there. There, Minji said suddenly, pointing at the display. That structure. It matches the symbol from the star chart. They all looked. Floating in the heart of the nebula was something impossible. It was massive, carved from what looked like crystallized starlight. It defied every law of physics Youngseo knew. That's it, Hyunsik breathed. That's the Keeper's sanctuary. Now we just have to figure out how to get inside, Daeho said. Without dying, to see a precursor artifact capable of testimony, we will hear it. If not, sentence will be carried out immediately. Upon the 30th day, the energy restraints around Jiwan's wrists pulled her backward. Guards, mechanical and living, surrounded her as they led her back to her detention cell. She looked back at Hyunsik, confusion and fear warring in her chest. As the crystal doors sealed behind her, Hyunsik stood alone in the gallery. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small data chip. On it was a single message he had received that morning from an unknown source. The message contained just one sentence. The Vault of Truths, knows all. Seek the Keeper's Testament. He had no idea what it meant. He had no idea if it was real or just someone's cruel joke. But it was the only hope they had left. He turned and walked out of the chamber, already making plans. 30 days wasn't much time to find a myth.